Stormclan's Folly came out last week on Tuesday, August 26th, and oh my goodness, we actually have a good Super Edition. One I had fun with that tells a new story with defined and interesting characters. This is the first time I've been able to say that without many caveats since, 2016 Hawkwing's Journey, I think. So, despite the fact that it is September and I am very busy with the first month of school, I knew I had to make a video on this one. As is typical for the new release videos now, I am going light on the editing to get this done in time. There will, of course, be spoilers for the whole book in this video. The first big thing to mention is actually the Ghostwriter. Kate Carey announced she was leaving the series early this year, and since Cherith wrote the previous Super Edition, Ivypool's Heart, this book was the first one to feature the new permanent Ghostwriter, Conrad Mason. As a reminder, the editing team behind the books, who plot out all of the stories, make all decisions about what will happen in the books, and edit the work the ghostwriters send back to them, is still the same, as far as we know. We still don't know who is involved in this team, other than that it is a team, but no announcements have been made about changes to that team. The ghostwriters' jobs are to take the extremely detailed outlines given to them by the editing teams and just write those stories out before they are edited by the editors. This is all to say, if there are any particular plot points or character choices that excite or anger you, the vast majority of the time it is unfair to lay cause for that on the feet of a ghostwriter. Most of what they're in charge of is just the style they use to write the story they were told to write. Which isn't nothing, but also isn't what I usually see people getting mad or happy about. That being said, off of this one book, I am happy with Conrad's writing style, so far, and interested to see how he writes in the future, particularly when given a chance to spend multiple books acclimating to a specific cast. Now it's time to get into the content of this book. Stormclan's Folly is, at its core, a tragedy. Particularly, but not exclusively, if you've read Ivypool's Heart, you will know that the core goal and mission of our main characters is doomed to failure. Galestar and Stripestar, the leaders of WindClan and ThunderClan respectively, want to fuse their clans into Stormclan, and even leave the forest to find a new, more suitable home for their larger clan. All in the name of being able to have a legal romantic relationship with each other. This is not going to work. We know that, in the future, ThunderClan and WindClan are still very separate clans, and the concept of joining clans, such as in TigerClan's case, is still seen as an unthinkable and terrible idea. We know that StarClan has always taken issue with cats flagrantly ignoring the way of the clans or the laws of the code, both of which are being violated here. If we've read Ivypool's Heart, we know that Galestar was lost, along with her 3 kits, and ended up joining a group of wildcats rather than reuniting with their strange clan. Because of this knowledge, I went in with similar expectations to those I would have had if I were picking up a classic tragedy like Macbeth, or The Great Gatsby, or Frankenstein, or Medea. I didn't expect a happy ending or a particularly positive tone after the first few chapters, and I was correct to do so. The protagonists start out roughly as happy as they will ever be, and then, because of who they are, what they want, and the choices they make, their lives come crashing down piece by piece, and several dark things happen along the way, including several character deaths and a miscarriage. I still personally enjoy this book a lot, but I want to give that warning before we get too far in, because if you're convinced to read it, you should know what you're getting into. That being said, one thing this book really shines in, that most recent Super Editions have struggled with, is the characterization of its protagonists. Both Galestar and Stripestar have strengths, flaws, and values that are consistent through the story and lead them to make choices that drive the action. This makes for a more enjoyable reading experience since you can come to understand these characters, anticipate how they will react in different situations, and remain immersed in the story rather than blaming authors for the poor choices they make. Galestar in particular is just a delightful character. She's compassionate, thoughtful, and introspective, giving her a significant inner life where she contemplates every aspect of what is around her and what other cats might need or might think about her. Galestar wants to be the best leader possible for her clan, but often doesn't think of herself as someone who can properly handle the responsibility, as she isn't as inspiring or heroic as other leaders in the present or past. By and large, she focuses on what is present and tactile, trying to determine all of the realistic possibilities in any situation and evaluating their likely consequences. This makes her a much more pessimistic character for a lot of the story, with fewer inventive dreams, but she is, as a result, drawn to cats who do have an optimistic outlook and a grand vision of the future, as it invigorates her and helps give her purpose. She is also very open and honest. Even as a clan leader in the very xenophobic clans, she feels deep compassion for warriors across any borders, genuinely getting upset if she hurts them, and even owning up and apologizing when she learns that her clan really was hunting over another clan's borders, which is a first for a leader in this series. She trusts others around her to be just as honest and open about their desires, both for emotional security and for planning purposes, and becomes increasingly uncomfortable and insecure when they aren't. So, of course, Striped Star is much the opposite. He is idealistic, optimistic, and extremely determined, not giving up on a dream once he envisions it. This makes him rather charismatic, but not especially grounded or rational, often skipping over or just not thinking enough to find the downsides to options he is considering. He is drawn to Galestar and other cats in his clan who are more grounded and capable of helping him bring his wild plans to fruition, but can also become jealous of that very quality in them, as it often makes them seem like better leaders and can cause many cats to trust Galestar more than him with plans or getting out of tough situations. Striped Star's insistence on positivity and following through with his goals also causes him to keep a lot of secrets to himself and try to push forward largely on his own when a situation isn't going his way. He's also a bit of a goofy guy, making grand dramatic stunts to get attention and throwing up a call of StormClan with several more A's than necessary every time he wants to rally the clan together or celebrate their small victories on the road. Silly as he may be, especially in contrast to Galestar's serious attitude, it's clear why he became leader. He has very different leadership qualities from Galestar, but both of them make sense as leaders of their clans. It's actually kind of brilliant, the way these two were characterized, as Striped Star is a character designed perfectly to be someone Galestar would realistically fall for, and someone who would hurt her in the long run. Through the first few chapters of this book, it is quickly established what these two see in each other and why they want to be mates, in a way that even I can understand, despite my, shall we say, lack of connection to romance in general. Throughout their journeys, you see them still trying to reach out to each other in the same ways, but their differences and insecurities also begin to pull them apart as their situations become less favorable and more of their clanmates either die, leave, or lose faith in them. Actually, a lot of this book's romantic relationships were done well in a similar way, showing us as readers why cats like each other rather than telling us they think a cat is pretty or that the other cat likes them so they have to return those feelings and leaving it at that. This is mostly the case among the other relationships with our main characters, for a reason I will get into later. Striped Star had a mate before Galestar named Fogdrift, who we could see he was drawn to for a similar reason as Galestar. She had a grounded and rational perspective on the world and could offer advice to temper his enthusiasm, if he would take it. She also, in the one scene we really got with her before she died, appeared to give this advice in a calm and gentle way, and in a private setting, which would help to get past some of Striped Star's insecurities about other cats being better leaders than him. Galestar also had a mate before Striped Star, this time her deputy, Pebblenose. He liked her since they were apprentices, and she didn't mind him as a friend at all. He was calm, approachable, a long-term thinker, and extremely compassionate and considerate of all cats around him. This made him a great deputy, as he was able to focus on the clan as a whole rather than just the cats Galestar knew well and paid the most attention to. And it made him an easy cat to befriend and be honest with. However, Pebblenose didn't inspire or invigorate Galestar in the way that Striped Star did, leading to her feelings for him staying platonic, and them eventually realizing that they shouldn't be mates. In contrast to both Striped Star and Pebblenose, the Tom Galestar falls for at the end of the book, a wild cat named Bound Hunt, is extremely open and honest. Rather than picking his words based on what will keep up an optimistic outlook, or being quiet if he wants to say something Galestar doesn't want to hear, Bound Hunt is open about his feelings immediately, but also remains secure in his identity whether or not Galestar feels the same way, about the wildcats, about her choices, or about their romantic possibilities. He also truly cares for and engages with her kits for their own sake, and offers a life separate from the turmoils Galestar endured for the better part of 2 years. There are several reasons both he and his situation would appeal to Galestar, and we learn about these quickly despite having so few chapters with the Wildcats. Of course, the big news around this book's romance has nothing to do with any of these couples. If you've heard anything about this book yet, even before it came out, it is likely that you've heard about one specific relationship. Pebblenose, after breaking up with Galestar, ends up instead becoming mates with his childhood friend Thrushcall, who is also a Tom. This isn't an interpretation or a footnote. The relationship between these two and Thrushcall's jealousy over Galestar was woven into the small bits of their early life we got, and once the two of them become mates, they are referred to as such for the rest of the book without anyone taking issue with it. They spend most of their time together, and even end up leaving Stormclan together and becoming members of the Tribe of Rushing Water, in its early days. So, yes, Warriors unequivocally has a new gay couple. And are they good representation? Well, them clearly and overtly being portrayed as mates is a great start. Pebblenose is a well-rounded and consistent character treated well by the narrative, which is great too. Thrushcall doesn't have nearly as much of a presence or a specific personality, but this isn't unique to him, as I'll get into later. And these two end their stories living happily together, rather than dying or being separated, as most cats in this tragic book do. There aren't any particular gay stereotypes their relationship or personalities lean into either. Pebblenose just happens to be a very sweet, calm, and thoughtful bisexual Tom, and Thrushcall is his protective gay husband who was willing to accept not being with him if it meant he was happy with Galestar, but was even happier when his old friend returned his feelings. This is a fantastic development, and it couldn't be a mistake this time from any angle. I can only hope this means Warriors is opening up the possibility of a greater quantity and/or variety of LGBTQ+ relationships in the future, perhaps even with characters more prominent than these two. The romantic couples were far from the only members of the supporting and background cast in this book, though, and quite a few of those cats were well characterized and entertaining while they were involved in the story. I'll start off with Birchstar, the leader of RiverClan, who is remarkably humanized for the leader of a rival clan. Stripestar and Galestar start their partnership by teaming up to take Sunning Rocks from RiverClan, and then continue their alliance in secret for a while, before formally announcing the start of StormClan. By the traditional Warriors formula, and especially for a character readers have never met before, you'd expect Birchstar to be generally antagonistic or avoid interacting with or caring about the other clans at all. Instead, Birchstar understands the love that has brought Galestar and Stripestar together, and wishes them no ill will, but cautions them to make the right choice, and refuses to indulge their wishes once they have committed to StormClan, especially at the expense of her own clan. She takes in members of WindClan and ThunderClan that chose not to leave with StormClan, and manages to remain a protector of her clan and decisions through the book, without becoming cruel or uncaring. Birchstar is a pretty minor character in this book, but she's a unique and refreshing character for the series. Speaking of refreshing, we have Kestrelwing, the older of two ThunderClan medicine cats who disliked the idea of StormClan from the beginning, as he knew StarClan wouldn't approve. This sets him up as an antagonist as well, who, according to classical Warriors tropes, should lurk ominously on the outside of the clan while either being grumpy, anxious, or angry, and then be proven right when StarClan brings their wrath down on the code-breaking leaders. However, Kestrelwing is actually a very compassionate and open cat, honest about the specific reasons he thinks StormClan is a bad idea, rather than just citing StarClan's will, and being willing to help both of his leaders where possible, despite his reservations. He ended up dying and became StormClan's patron spiritual guide for the entire rest of the book, through the tribe and the lake and the beach, and giving a life to ThunderClan's new leader when they returned to the forest. Our protagonists only think of him fondly as a grounding and wise force in their lives. It's nice to see. Partway through the book, we're also suddenly introduced to Flash, a WindClan cat who was here the whole time definitely, who happens to also be a former kitty pet. He ends up walking them through how to interact with two-legs, teaches them to get food from kind two-leg kits, and introduces them to all parts of an abandoned two-leg house when they get to use it as their nest for a few moons. He doesn't have enough book time to show off much personality beyond being a helpful ex-kitty pet unashamed of his heritage, but that in and of itself is, again, nice to see more of in Warriors. ThunderClan's deputy Tinyclaw is also a cool character. As an appropriate foil for Stripestar, she talks openly with him before making her own decisions or letting him make his, challenging his wild ideas to help him find more realistic options. She also has more emotional control than Stripestar and is less involved than Galestar, so she is able to take up organization of both clans when Pebblenose is gone, and both leaders are emotionally or physically unavailable. She is dedicated to the clan, either ThunderClan or StormClan, but does trust her former ThunderClan leader and clanmates more by instinct, and checks in with Stripestar before following orders from Galestar, something that builds up insecurities in the WindClan leader. Despite her level of emotional control, you can see Tiny Claw getting worn down in the background as the book goes on. So when they get back to the forest, Stripestar has stepped down, and Tiny Claw is leading ThunderClan until a new leader can be found. She actually expresses relief when a new leader is chosen, and that leader chooses the outspoken Tumbletail as their deputy, rather than Tiny Claw. Once again, it's refreshing to see a character in leadership who doesn't want to hold on to that leadership with everything they have, and to see the job itself wear down on some cats over time. Who was that replacement leader, by the way? Well, that would be the ThunderClan she-cat Whitestep, now White Star. Early in the book, Whitestep's mate Rosebush injured his paw, and as a result, was unable to clear a difficult jump in the mountains on their way to the tribe, and fell to his death instead. Whitestep speaks up a few times through their journey after this, and is one of the first cats willing to say that Stormclan needs to move on, because at each step of their journey, it isn't working. This may be because Rosebush's death pushed her to speak up earlier about dangers to those she cared about. She does not hate or blame her leaders for their decisions, but needs them to make better ones, now. There is little build-up to her being chosen as ThunderClan's new leader, but she's a fine choice. In fact, it's arguable that her ascension as leader was even foreshadowed before StormClan left the forest. A wildfire burnt down ThunderClan's territory and broke when some rain finally came, but a single flower remained, representing renewal and rebirth. That flower was specifically a white-petaled flower, so it may have been a sign even then that Whitestep could bring a new dawn to ThunderClan. The last cat I wanted to discuss isn't actually one cat, but many. The Wildcats here have a very cool culture that is both distinct from the clans and not looked down on for their differences. Much of their society revolves around the spiritual guides, specific Wildcat ancestors who choose to bond with Wildcats, either at their birth or the time they join the group, and who provide guidance through visions or words. Wildcats have two-part names that come in two words, such as roll flick, nuzzle hiss, or lunge snap. When Wildcats are chosen by a guide, they keep the one-word name their parents gave them, such as Thrush, Fog, and Pebble for Galestar's kits, and they also take on their guide's first name as the second part of their name, making Galestar's kits Thrush Roll, Fog Nuzzle, and Pebble Lunge. Galestar gets a guide of her own in Rise Stretch, despite being an adult, so she has the name Gale Rise, but prefers to still go by Galestar until she commits to staying with the Wildcats and Bound Hunt in her final chapter. These spiritual guides have the ability to possess willing Wildcat elders in order to directly communicate with the living cat they are connected to, which they use to provide both training and wisdom. Wildcats don't have specific living mentors because of this, and instead, groups of young cats train with various adults who each teach them different skills. When they have completed their training, Wildcats commune with their guides in a ceremony of sorts that is only for them, and become not warriors, but prowlers. Honestly, I just enjoy the world building here, without it being laced with the xenophobia most non-clan group introductions are. I'd like to see more of them in the future. Now, despite all of these characters having very refreshing and interesting characterization for the time they are on screen, there is a problem with this book not giving them time on screen in the first place. With two full clans of characters, none of which readers were familiar with ahead of time, I'm sure it was a daunting task to include everyone and make them feel present in the story. However, the solution they landed on for this book creates a jarring reading experience. Essentially, our point-of-view characters, Galestar and Stripestar, are the only ones you can expect to reliably be part of the whole story. Support characters like Tiny Claw, Pebblenose, or Kestrel Wing will show up more often, but still tend to only appear in scenes if they have something specific to say or do. Beyond them, almost every other character in the narrative appears exactly when they have to be a part of the story, most often because they will be leaving or dying in the next chapter, but sometimes because they will need to assist in the journey in that same time. This means that many characters, like Flash, will only be shown in the allegiances, and then suddenly pop up for the first time in the middle of the journey to say that they have been here the whole time, are a kitty pet, and can help with that two-leg situation StormClan is now facing. Other characters, like Rosebush, will again pop up for the first time in the middle of the journey, just as the clan approaches a thunder path, alerting you that something is probably going to happen with Rosebush on the thunder path. It is. His paw gets injured, allowing him to die in the next chapter as they travel up the mountain. We know that some cats from WindClan and ThunderClan stayed in the clan territories and either became loners or joined RiverClan or ShadowClan rather than leaving with StormClan. But aside from Galestar's sister, Crowflight, we have no idea which cats those are. So as you flip between the allegiances and the story while reading the book, it's impossible to tell if a cat hasn't been mentioned because they aren't on the journey or just because they haven't needed to come up for an important story moment yet. For a story ostensibly about StormClan, what it is really about is Galestar and Stripestar's evolving relationship, and the rest of the clan is just pulled along on that journey with varying degrees of willingness. This is a common problem through a lot of recent Warriors books, not utilizing the book's cast, and especially any new or background members of a cast, unless they have been selected for use in a specific event. I am absolutely positive that this jarring part of StormClan's Folly is due to that same trend, and it's not a good trend. However, I will say that from an in-story perspective, this mistake happens to work well with the themes of the story. As I said earlier, this story is a tragedy where Galestar and Stripestar are so focused on each other and the life they could have together that they are willing to break laws and test the limits of their and their clanmates' luck to build some sort of life together. This is framed as an overall bad decision that harms a lot of cats before it crashes down entirely and leaves ThunderClan and WindClan separated again, having to build themselves up almost from scratch. In that framework, Galestar and Stripestar being the only consistent characters makes it feel like they really are entirely focused on each other to the detriment of their clans. They have compassion for their clanmates, but only tend to bring them up if those clanmates assert themselves to help, to protest, to leave, or because they are dying, which is exactly when the rest of the cast gets to have scenes. It gives you, the reader, a detachment from the point of view characters as you end up wishing they spent more time speaking with and thinking about the other cats around them, maybe even listen to them enough to make different choices. I'm aware that this whole thing is just a writing mistake, but it works well in this exact situation. Although, this does bring up the other issue with the book, one that I can personally overlook, but that I know has stopped other people from enjoying it. The themes that this book is trying to emphasize, and especially the involvement of StarClan in the story, are rather disheartening. Galestar and Stripestar fall in love initially when they are both leaders, and have been so for 4 and 6 moons respectively. By the laws of their society, they absolutely cannot get together, and even by the modern code, one of them would have to step down as leader and leave their clan to join the other's clan, which neither leader wanted to do. This is where the idea for StormClan came from, to combine their clans in order to avoid their relationship being illegal, an idea they created when they were already going to have kids. As you can expect, StarClan, the other clan leaders, the medicine cats, and essentially every cat who generally follows StarClan was not in favor of StormClan. Galestar and Stripestar even went to StarClan to ask for approval to form their new clan, and all of the clan founders came specifically to yell at them, say they will never condone this choice, and that if they choose to form StormClan, they will walk without StarClan's guidance, and their 9 lives will be forfeit. Galestar and Stripestar choose to go forward with StormClan anyway, and we see StarClan take their lives away, with a similar painful process as we usually see when cats get their 9 lives. From this point onward, an awful lot of awful things happen to StormClan. ShadowClan and RiverClan start invading WindClan territory, since the WindClan cats live on ThunderClan's territory as part of StormClan, but then a wildfire is started by Two Legs and spreads through the whole forest. The stress of the situation causes Galestar to have a miscarriage and lose her kits in an early birth. As the kits were the main thing inspiring StormClan to stay together, arguments began breaking out more frequently. The clan has trouble building dens or finding prey after the fire, so they decide to leave and find their own new home. But as they're leaving, many clanmates, even family members, stay behind, some never to be seen again. Lugging around their massive clan takes too long, leading to Kestrelwing being killed on the Thunderpath after getting heat exhaustion waiting for every other cat in StormClan to cross first, and Rosebush's paw getting injured, leading to his death later. These deaths cause more cats to lose trust in StormClan's future, so more cats leave. Stoneteller passes on a warning to Stripestar and Galestar, which they can't yet interpret, and Stripestar later gets a dream that clarifies and scares him further about the future. But as he doesn't want anyone to lose more faith in StormClan than they already have, he keeps it to himself. Each of the places they venture to and try to make a home in end up being difficult in different, unexpected ways, usually leading to a death and one or more cats leaving the clan as they lose more and more trust in their leader's choices. The high tensions also start making Stripestar and Galestar argue more often, as each cat falls back on their flaws in ways that irritate or flare insecurities in the other. Then, when Galestar finally does have Stripestar's kits, it is in the one place where Stripestar realizes the bad omen will come true, a secret he kept from her until it was impossible for her to leave with her kits this young. This leads to their final falling out, Galestar and her kits getting completely separated from StormClan, and Stripestar having to return home a failure, with StormClan breaking up and WindClan blaming him for Galestar's apparent death. This was a very step-by-step downfall, typical of a tragedy. A lot of the choices being made here are intertwined with the personalities and goals of our characters and the limitations of their society. Galestar and Stripestar's problems come from being leaders of two separate communities who are in love. Neither is willing to leave their community to join the other, and they have responsibilities to those communities that make their clanmates, effectively, pawns in their ultimate goal of finding a home together. But with a community so big, traveling and finding a good home were dangerous tasks that few cats had faith in to begin with. Nothing about that particular story relies on the frustrating aspects of warriors' culture, religious beliefs, or warrior code, as even if Galestar and Stripestar were allowed to get together, it wouldn't be feasible on a practical level without forming something like StormClan. So why does this plotline frustrate people? Well, it comes down to one question. How much of StormClan's fate was a result of StarClan's intervention? In a traditional tragedy, and with the way I framed the summary, the bad things that happen to characters are a result of bad luck combined with the consequences of the character's actions. But in this series, luck, fate, and destiny are often used to describe StarClan's will, or the results of StarClan's prophecies. And we were told by StarClan directly that Galestar and Stripestar would walk in darkness all their moons if they chose to form StormClan. The only thing we definitively know StarClan did is take away their 9 lives, but given their dark omen, a lot more can potentially be ascribed to them, depending on your interpretation. Did StarClan cause the Two Legs to start a wildfire on ThunderClan's territory? Did StarClan cause Galestar's miscarriage? Did StarClan stop rain from coming to help heal the territory until Galestar's miscarriage? Did StarClan somehow guide their steps on the journey to ensure they would only stop at homes that would endanger them? Did StarClan somehow send the storm to the beach, to the Sundrown place that separated Galestar from StormClan and locked her in a cave? We don't know, and we have no way to say one way or the other. But if you read StarClan as being at fault for this, the punishment definitely does not fit the crime, and further hammers in an existing frustration with cats becoming mates being a heinous crime across the clans, StarClan having totalitarian power over cats' destinies and lives, and determinism always being on StarClan's side, rather than the side of cats trying to live out their dreams and do what would make them happy. In particular, if StarClan was responsible for Galestar's miscarriage, or was waiting for that death before they allowed StormClan's territory to heal, that certainly does not reflect well on their ability to punish the cats actually at fault for an action they disapprove of, which is a mistake they have made several times in the past. I personally don't get frustrated by these aspects because the ambiguity over how involved StarClan was is enough for me to treat the story as a traditional tragedy, rather than another story about StarClan disproportionately punishing undeserving cats, and I enjoy being able to see how Galestar and Stripestar's choices made more difference in their fates than destiny itself did. Even if you are put off by the potential involvement of StarClan, though, one bright side has to be Galestar's ending. Outside of the expected tragedy format, Galestar actually ended up growing up with her kits in a new culture with the wildcats that didn't force any more hard choices or death upon her, where cats were there to guide her and take some of the burden of her responsibility off her paws, and where she could honestly live as herself. She loved this life so much that she called it her home, took a mate who supported her and her family, and went by the name Galerise to honor not just her own spiritual guide, but the group she was happy to become a part of. Overall, despite the hiccups in parts of the writing, I really enjoyed this book, and I think a lot of that comes down to how new all of these ideas were, and how excited the writers clearly were to explore this concept. StormClan as a whole, the idea of two leaders falling in love, Galestar and Stripestar's interesting personalities, and the brand new cast accessible in this time period are things we have never seen in full before, and only got a summarized glimpse of in Ivypool's Heart. Unlike most of the recent Super Editions, it doesn't feel at all like this was written to appeal to the popularity of a specific character or to retell stories we already knew while the editors come up with other stories, but because the authors had an idea they were excited about and wanted to share with us. That will always make far better stories, so I hope everyone buys, reads, and supports this book to encourage them to keep doing it. But I'm sure this book represents a big step for Warriors that it will continue into the... sorry, what was that? The new Super Edition announcement. It's about who? Darktail, are you kidding? We have seen every bit of his life. We have his explicit backstory in One Star's Confession, every bit of his villainy in A Vision of Shadows, his death and capture into the Dark Forest, once again in One Star's Confession, and then his post-death trip into the Dark Forest and double death to Violet Shine in the Broken Code. What could they possibly write 400 to 500 pages about? Well... get ready for another book with copious amounts of copy-pasted exact scenes from other books from a slightly different point of view, where Darktail makes few to no choices that advance the story in ways we haven't already seen before. I was so excited. And I am still excited about Stormclan's Folly and the writing direction this could take Warriors in, but their next Super Edition does not fill me with confidence. Well, I guess we'll have to see when that comes. Do read Stormclan's Folly, though. It's very interesting and very good. Thank you for watching, and always remember that if you happen to be a leader in love with a different leader from a rival community, you should probably either step down as leader or find another mate. Both are good options.